King David is perhaps one of the most exciting personalities in the Old Testament. He united the kingdom of Israel, wrote 73 psalms, and even slew a giant. But did he really exist? Or is he just a made-up character in a storybook? Is there any archaeological evidence for the existence of King David? You bet there is.
1.
The Bethlehem Bulla. The Bible tells us that David was born in the little town of Bethlehem, a short 6 miles from Jerusalem. The same town, in fact, where Jesus would be born 1,000 years later. Micah 5:2. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. Some skeptics have argued that Bethlehem didn't even exist back then. But then, in 2012, they found the Bethlehem Bulla, dating to the first temple period between the 10th and 7th centuries BC. This is the first reference to Bethlehem outside of the Bible.
2.
The Royal Star Bulla, or Khirbet Semeli seal impression, dates to the 10th century BC, and while it does not have David's name written directly on it, it does indicate that there was a king in Jerusalem at the time of David. The star was a common symbol of royalty in ancient times. Matthew 2:2. Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him.
3.
King of Israel, Ostracon. Another indirect piece of evidence for King David is the Khirbet Kayafa Ostracon. Using pottery analysis, it was dated to 1000 BC, the time of King Saul and King David in the Bible. Incidentally, carbon-14 analysis of olive pips found with the ostracon also gave the same date of 1000 BC. While the fragment does not mention Saul or David by name, it is clearly part of a royal decree, something that would have circulated when a new king like Saul or David came to power.
4.
The Goliath Ostracon. Another indirect piece of evidence for the historical David is Goliath, the giant he fought with a sling, if you remember. Dating to the 9th or 10th centuries BC, the Goliath Ostracon was found near giant blocks measuring 1 to 2 meters or 3 to 6 feet in length in Goliath's hometown of Gath. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. 1 Samuel 17:4. Why is it called the Goliath Ostracon? It's called the Goliath Ostracon because his name is written on it. Well, that's well named. I thought so. Well, hold on. We have evidence for David's hometown of Bethlehem and that there was a king in Israel at that time. We even have Goliath's name, but we don't have David's name or a statue of him anywhere. That's true. But remember, Israel didn't make statues of their kings like they did in Egypt and Babylon. Well, why not? The second commandment, Exodus 20:4-6. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. Okay, that makes sense. But didn't they write his name down, the name David, somewhere, anywhere? Yes, they had extensive historical records. Unfortunately, they were recorded on soft materials like animal skins and papyrus, which don't last thousands of years. So many of them were lost to time. The records that have survived are copies of copies of copies, the most miraculous of which is the Bible itself.
5.
The Tel Dan Stele. This stone tablet recounts how the king of Damascus Possibly Hazael, who is mentioned in the Bible, defeated the king of Israel and the king of the house of David. Based on the date between 796 and 792 BC, this would have been Jehoram of Israel and Ahaziah of Judah.
But what is significant to us is that it mentions King David by name.
In fact, at its discovery in 1993, it was considered to be the first reference to the house of David outside of the Bible. And if David had a house or a family line, then obviously he was not a myth, he actually existed. Well, I have a surprise for you. Really?
6,
The Moabite stone, or Mesha Stele, dating to 840 BC. This is the actual first reference to the house of David outside of the Bible. It was first discovered in Jordan in 1868 by an Anglican minister. And then a year later, the Bedouin tribe that lived nearby smashed it to pieces rather than turn it over to their Ottoman oppressors. Fortunately, a squeeze or paper mache impression was taken of the intact stele before its destruction. The current version, which is in the Louvre in Paris, is a reconstruction of both the remaining fragments and also the squeeze impressions. On the stele, Mesha recounts how he defeated Omri, the king of Israel, who, according to Mesha, oppressed
Moab
for many years. He also mentions Israel many times and the tribe of Gad, and also, most importantly, he mentions the name of Israel's God, Yahweh, by name. After the discovery of the Tel Dan stele, the Moabite stone was re-examined, and they discovered the phrase House of David. And that was only about 150 years after King David died. Wow! Good job, James! No problem.
7,
In 1999, Egyptologist Kenneth Kitchen identified a third reference to David, dating to the 10th century, on the hieroglyphic list on the Karnak Temple in Egypt. Unfortunately, this frieze cartouche was destroyed by vandals.
8,
In Kfar Manash, a hoard of giant-sized copper spears was found.
What are those for?
An enormous suit of copper armor, big enough for a giant.
9,
Another strange connection to Goliath's story is found in 1 Chronicles 20, verse 6. In still another battle which took place at Gath, there was a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. He also was descended from Rapha. Rapha is another name for Goliath. Now, Gath had a strange way of burying their dead in Egyptian-looking sarcophagi, except some of these sarcophagi have 6 fingers on each hand. The extra digits in Goliath's family was probably a family trait that had been passed down since then.
10,
Ishbosheth inscription. After David was anointed by the prophet Samuel to be king of Israel, King Saul still hoped his own sons, Jonathan, Abinadab, Malchishua, Ishvi, and Ishbosheth, or Eshbaal, would continue his royal dynasty. After the death of Saul and 3 of his sons in a battle with the Philistines, Ishbosheth became king of the northern tribes of Israel until his assassination 7 years later. In 2012, archaeologists discovered the name Eshbaal, or Ishbosheth, inscribed on fragments of a ceramic jar dating to the 10th century BC.
So there you have it, folks. King David in the Bible wasn't a myth. He was a real person in history. Subscribe to our channel and watch the next one.